Slowhands Rock Talk Show.
Drumport has been a distributor of high-quality musical instruments and since 2018 a manufacturer with an innovative StompTech product line. The Slowhands Rock Talk Show personally recommends their products for all musicians. Click the link in the description and pick up yours today. Before the video starts, if you could do me a huge favour and make sure that you have subscribed to the channel. It's free, it only takes seconds to do, and it really does help the channel continue to grow. Now on to the video. But DJ, thank you so much for making a bit of time out of your evening to come on to the podcast and speak to myself all about music. No technical issues whatsoever.
None.
We are pros.
Definitely. Or the gear no idea.
But you know what? I was actually thinking about this. Like, I've been looking forward to talking to you, but I was like, when did we first meet? Can you remember?
I think so. I can't remember the name of the venue, and my band Sooth were playing with your band Loose Lips Sink Ships, and I think it was in Paisley.
Yeah.
I don't know if that was the first, because either that or
that was the first time.
It was either there, and I think we played with a band that had red in their name. I can't remember. They were all right. They were quite good. And then,
because I remember this must have been early 2008. That's how long ago it was. Or possibly December 2007.
right?
Because I looked it up, and the band Loose Lips Sink Ships, I was friends with the bass player Chris from years and years before.
Yeah, that's how I knew.
And I hadn't spoke to Chris for a while, and he contacted me out of the blue one day to say he's playing in this band in Glasgow, but they don't have any. They've got a few songs, but they've not recorded any of them. So they wanted to try and get some recordings done in order to put up on their MySpace at the time to try and get some gigs.
Yeah,
and I had like a Korg 16-track digital recorder. Yeah. So he said, could you come along to our rehearsal? And we've got like 5 or 6 songs, whatever it was. So I said, that's fine. They paid me a bottle of Jack Daniels per day.
Bargain.
Right, and what happened was, I think it was just a weekend of recording, Saturday and Sunday, full days, and they had another guitarist. I was just recording.
I was going to ask that.
So I was just recording, and then I'd sent them over like the MP3s or whatever it was. This is the finished product, which sounded terrible in hindsight. But about a week later, it was almost a week later, on the Monday, Chris messaged me and he said he'd obviously put the songs to certain pubs, or I don't know how he kind of got the gig that you're talking about,
right.
But he said to me, we've got our first gig on Friday night.
Was that your first gig?
With that band.
What? All right, on that night was?
However, he said on the Monday, we've got our first gig on the Friday, but we've just sacked the guitarist. Is there any chance you could quickly just learn the songs for Friday? So I had 5 days, not even 5 days. I had 4 nights to learn their set list.
Yeah, so good.
And they showed up, and obviously you guys were playing someone else. I can't remember the place. I think it was Paisley, because it was a bit of a trek to get there.
I don't think the venue exists anymore. I've played Paisley since, obviously the bungalow and all that, and it wasn't the bungalow.
Yeah,
I think I've seen pictures somewhere floating
but
around. I'll send them to you.
Those demos were recorded in December 2007.
Right.
So it would either have been December 2007 or January 2008.
Yeah, that probably makes sense for us. So
that's crazy. That's nearly 20 years ago.
I know, and we're still kind of living in one foot in that world to an extent. It just makes such a massive impact on you. You know that what you kind of do in those music days when you're young. It
was a strange one though, because I felt so old in that. But that band, the reason I played guitar in it was because at the time I was friends with Chris.
Yeah.
I mean, Rachel and Fraser were both really nice, but they were a bit younger.
Yeah.
The style of music was nothing that I was interested in playing. and also, I was going through a really rotten time personally. I had a wee girl who was 1 at the time. She's 20 now.
It's hard going, that.
Which is crazy. Yeah. So I was kind of a bit sort of torn a wee bit. Like, I wanted to... I done it because I wanted to do something, but I didn't necessarily... It wasn't the kind of band I would normally play. And I was jealous of you guys when I seen you playing, because it was more in line with the style of music I would have been playing. Yep. You were obviously a lot better musicians. And what I mean by that is I felt I was a pretty good musician. Yeah. But I didn't feel like maybe the others in the band matched up. So I felt like the band was just... It was just young, and it was it just wasn't really my thing. But I also wanted to kind of get out there and do something. But I seen you guys, and I was like, I really like this band. They're nice guys. This music's rocking. You could tell that you were well rehearsed.
Yeah. So
and that's something that we weren't.
I think at the time, definitely. So 2007 and 2008. I don't know. Trying to think of timelines here. We recorded 6 months on, which was our big EP. We wanted that EP to be the one that broke us. In my mind, I always thought of it. I always remember, do you remember Funeral for a Friend released an EP, and it was massive, and everybody had this EP, and nobody knew who this band were. I kind of thought that 6 months on was going to be ours, and we were really proud of that EP. But even just the recording process of that, and the pre-production of that, we really grew up in the kind of process of that 6 months on. And the time frame that you're talking about, I reckon, was either while we were recording it or just after it. And I would probably say that was when we probably realised who we were, what we wanted.
How long had the band been going by that point?
So, I mean, typical story. I've been playing in a band with Malky and Dave since I was 12.
Right, okay.
Aye, and then, I probably met you, I think, when I was 22, so 10 years later.
No, I remember, I would have been...
I was 21.
I'm older than you.
Yeah.
I know you can't tell, but... but I think I was around the age of 26, right. 25, 26. You're maybe a year younger than me, a couple of years maybe.
Okay. So by that point we'd done a lot. Brian joined the band, I think, in 2004, 2005.
Right.
And so we'd really kind of settled in to ourselves at that point. And although we were getting gigs and we were doing tours, it wasn't big tours, it wasn't big support slots. And I think that was one thing we kind of struggled with a little bit, was to try and get out there and find our audience. Even though I think we had... Well, thanks for obviously the compliments. I do think we were tight. We were pretty serious with ourselves when it came to rehearsals. We rehearsed 3 hours on a Wednesday, 3 hours on a Sunday every week. And
but see even that, see even doing 2 rehearsals a week rather than 1, can make all the difference. Huge. But the thing I noticed, you were well rehearsed, and you had actually took a bit of time to figure out. Each person had figured out their sound. Mm-hmm. Like the guitars had a specific sound, so regardless of where you saw you play, the band sounded the same.
Amazing, thanks, man.
Each time, because I'm probably guilty of this. Like lots of gigs where you just show up and it's almost like you just plug in. Mm-hmm. And it's like the band, the actual sound of the band is different at every gig. But that was the one thing I did notice. You were well rehearsed, and you had obviously probably took the time to figure out your sound, but you had been doing it long enough that you knew what sound you wanted.
Yeah, and I definitely think so. We went into Chem 19 to record 6 months on, and at that point, Malky had went out and bought an Engel. Now, that was a serious amplifier, and I was like... I think that was the fanciest amplifier I'd ever seen. I've been playing music for 10 years at that point. I was like, what's this thing? And an Engel Powerball. It was unreal. And I think I was still using a Marshall Valve State VS 102R which I still love.
Which
Those amps, by the way. Like,
that had a great sound though.
I think I got it when I was like 16, and I was like, and I played it for years. And
I had the same one.
Magic. Loads of folk had them. I'd say it was the best budget Marshall you could get. But when we went into Ken 19, Ken 19 had just opened up their new studio, and everything was just a little bit more grown up. And we went in and we seen the gear that they had. We seen their live room, and we're like, right, okay. And Malky had his Engo, and then Brian used to actually be a guitar player, and he had a Marshall. Oh, terrible! I can't remember the model. I think it was a JC something 2000 or a T.
Damn bassists.
He had a better amp than me, so then he brought this in.
Yeah.
And I've got pictures of it, and maybe Marshall Valve State sitting there, and I don't think it sat there for long, to be honest, because we just got these kind of guitar tones. But one of the best things we did when we were recording that is the guy we recorded with, Andy Miller. He's not a metalhead by any means. Like, I think he worked with like Arab Strap and Mogwai kind of back in the day. So kind of when us kind of metalheads come in, we're ready to scoop the guitars, and scoop all the mids out. And he's just a bit like, no, okay, we wait the now. And I definitely think some of the tones that we got on 6 months on are a little bit more kind of classic, a little bit more kind of grown up, not as kind of chuggy, or as the young ones would call it, genty these days. They're not scooped.
It's sometimes quite nice trusting someone that's not the band.
Absolutely.
To, let me try this. Mm-hmm. See what you think. You're the band at the end of the day. You get the sound that you want, but trust someone with a fresh pair of ears to listen to your music and say it needs more of this, it needs less of that.
Yeah, they're getting definitely the combination of the two approaches, with Andy from his being kind of more kind of Scottish indie vibe, and us coming in from like a hard rock metal vibe. But I do think we kind of met in the middle a little bit, and I do think if we hadn't went to Andy and we did go to like a metalhead kind of producer, I don't think I'd probably be able to listen to that EP today, because I think it would have been very much of the time. I think Andy gave a guitar tone that we felt is maybe
you would maybe find lasting. Maybe you would be a little disappointed now listening to it.
Yeah.
Because you would have probably been proud of it back then.
Oh, aye.
But you'd sent us a link.
Yeah.
Because we'll talk about this later. But I was listening to it today, and it still sounds great. I mean, it was a really good sounding recording.
Yeah, thank you.
How was that recorded? Was that drums tracked first and then everything layered on top?
Yeah, so super traditional. So we were very lucky. So we did our first 2 EPs with Andy Miller, and those were when we were like wee guys. And the main reason we went to Andy Miller, there was a band from Carluke called the Gangsters, and we were obsessed with the Gangsters growing up. I mean, they were in 6th year, and they should have been signed right there in 6th year. And we found out that Andy did all their stuff, so we were like, cool. So our first 2 EPs, we went to Andy Miller. We then branched off and we actually recorded our 3rd EP with a member of the Gangsters. And although that was okay, Sooth, that was when Brian had just come in. The lineup was a little bit unsettled, and I guess recording with one of your mates, it wasn't quite as strict as maybe what it could be. So the 3rd EP we actually binned and we never released out. And then when it came round to making 6 months on, we're like, right, okay, we'll go back to Andy. And we turned up at Ken 19 and they went, well, actually, we've got this new studio available for you. It's brand new. It's in Blantyre. Come and get a tour. So Paul, the drummer for the Delgados, took us up there, and we were just like, whoa, this is amazing.
Yeah.
Right? We're just wee guys. And then I think they said because you are the first band in it, or because there's this bit, I can't remember, but we got some discount on it, and we just went, done, sold, did it. And we booked up for like a week or 2, and we went in. We did the drums in a live room in there, with me doing guide tracks along with the drums. Then we did Brian's bass after that. I then think it was Malky's guitar next, because if you think my guitar was already down as the guide track.
Yeah.
So I think we had Malky's guitar, and then at that point, we were very lucky. Malky was working at the RSAMD in Glasgow, which is now called the Royal Conservatoire.
Yep.
And they just had talented musicians kicking about the corridors left, right and centre. And Malky had arranged for a cello player and a viola player to come in to the studio. So they came into the studio at that point, and at that point, it just blew the doors open. The ambition was just through the roof. This is unreal, and I think that was it. We started to realise we were pretty close to realising the dream.
Yeah. Malky recorded our band.
I remember that. I think I came in to say hi.
Maybe you did. I can't quite remember. I think it was over a couple of weekends or something like that. But I think that kind of, it showed, like, I was so used to by that point doing home recording that Malky would set us up, get the guitar sound that you want, but it would be like, right, hit record, and I could do the track like perfect, and it'd be like, do you want to double it? Aye, that's fine. Hit record, double it, and then there was the others in the band were like 7 or 8 takes just to try and get the song done. I think that was kind of like the level that we were at. So it was good fun at the time, but that's how I kind of got to know Malky. Yeah. Because I was thinking, I know Malky. I still speak to Malky now and again. Yeah. Obviously, I know yourself. Still speak to you now and again. But we've got each other on social media. Yeah. I don't really know Brian or Dave. Yeah. Obviously, I know who they are. Yeah, yeah. If they walked past me, I would know who they are. They would probably recognise myself, but I don't know either of them to speak to. I think they're maybe the quieter ones in the band.
Yeah, I guess so. Dave was we always thought Dave was kind of like the talented one. We were all a bit insecure with our music, and Dave he was such a good drummer. I can remember, like, even being 14-year-old, I think with like a bread knife, he carved practice into his bedroom wall. He was so hard on himself, and what a drummer for that, especially for that kind of genre of music. So Dave's always been brilliant. And then when Brian joined the band, he brought harmony with him. I mean, what a difference that was to have somebody in the band that could bring harmony and that kind of perspective. And I think you can hear Brian all over 6 Months On. I was listening to the EP maybe about a month ago, and I texted Brian, and I know I was the singer of the band, but actually there's probably more vocals of Brian because his harmonies are amazing. They're layered and layered and layered.
I listened to the EP about an hour ago.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. And I mean, it still sounds great. It doesn't sound dated. It sounds like it could have came out today. Yeah. Right? But I put down a couple of wee notes. Dave is just in the pocket with those drums. I mean, they're absolutely solid. Solid. But I'd wrote down, yourself and Brian, you're so unbelievably different with your vocal approach, but it works so well together.
No, thanks, man.
Right? Yeah. But even like... But Malky's guitar playing, what I always liked about Malky's guitar playing, I know you were playing guitar as well, you didn't overplay. What you played made the song sound better. It wasn't, look how technically gifted I am, look how great I am. It was this, there was point, you done riffs where a lot of people don't do it, where it stops in the silence. And it's a wee sort of quirk that a lot of people don't do, but I like it because it lets the other sound come through. But it was really good. But I was listening, and All Our Stories and Eenie Meenie were the two songs automatically. I remembered those ones. Yeah. But I remembered those from the very first gig I saw you play. I remembered those. But you had a couple other ones that weren't there. So there was one called The Italian, which I always liked. I think that was an old tune.
Yeah. It's a really
right. And I liked one.
16, yeah.
Was there one called The Great Fire of London?
So The Great Fire of London, that was one of our final songs to ever be released.
Aye.
Kind of peeled it off the internet just now. I don't think it exists on the internet just now at the moment.
I remember the name though.
But yeah, we were really proud of that song. That was probably one of the last songs that we did. Just before our demise. So, but yeah, I was having a wee think. When have I seen you play? So I think we played a couple of different gigs together. Yeah. I only remember the first one, if I'm being honest. I'm positive that I saw you play downstairs in Nice and Sleazy's. I think so too. That's what I was going to say.
Because I always remember being really impressed by yourself because you done that. That point in the gig where it's you had obviously, it was maybe the EP that we were just talking about, but you had CDs of it, selling them out of the guitar case. And I think it was the thing where you'd done some sort of little speech in between songs. You know, if you're interested in buying an EP, go over there or whatever it was. But you were really natural on the mic, and at that moment in time, I couldn't have done that. I could probably do it now, but back then I was quite impressed because I was like, this guy. It was maybe false bravado, but I was like, this guy's got the gift of the gab as well. I
think that was your launch night. So that that was the launch night of the EP. We did it in Sleazy's, and we were trying to find pictures of that recently. And
I don't think I've got any, but I've got pictures.
I've got 3, but they're all just like the aftermath rather than of the gig.
But it's funny, I've seen you in Stirling. You've played in Stirling, which is kind of more through my way.
Yep. Remember that?
My pal was the one that put on the gig, but I had went along almost kind of. I didn't realise he'd put the gig on, so I went along to see you guys because it was in my neck of the woods. Yeah. And then I was like, oh Christ, I didn't realise he actually put the gigs on. So I've got a couple of pictures of that one.
Wow. That was the only time you played Stirling.
Yeah, and I thought the only other time I'd seen you play, I went to your very last gig. I can't remember where it was.
So it might have been, there was two kind of last gigs. There was a last Glasgow gig, and there was a last final gig, and the final gig was in Starka Bar in Motherwell. That's
where I went because I've never been there before, and I've never been there since. But me and my pal went along, and the place was absolutely packed. There's like sweat dripping off the ceiling.
I know, it was quite like bittersweet a little bit when you were packing it in, and everybody turns out for the last show. And I think like that's definitely. It's like Glasgow bands, I've kind of learned this lesson the hard way, is that if you play Glasgow, like I learned this with Aerogram, right? So Aerogram, I loved them. I thought they were great. And every time they were playing a gig, I'm like, I'll go and see them next time. They're from Glasgow. Do you know what I mean? They'll be playing in 3 weeks' time. It's fine. Yeah. And then they just announced they were split up, and I was like, oh no. Like, all those times I intended to go and see them, and I never went.
But what's really funny, I've got behind the camera, I've got a notice board that's got old ticket stubs. And I know that there's a Sooth one up there, so I always just assumed it was for the very last gig. But I looked at it earlier and I'm like, it's got Ivory Blacks. I was like, I don't remember going to see you guys at Ivory Blacks, but there's a ticket up there.
That was the second last gig, I believe.
Right. I must have been to the last two then.
Yeah, that's the second last gig. At that point, I mean, Ivory Blacks, it's not my venue of choice, but I think at this point we were stopping hunting for venues, do you know what I mean? And if gigs fell on our knees, we're like, all right, okay, we'll do them. And then Starka Bar for us, because we were from Carluke, Motherwell was a bit of a hometown for us for gigs, you know, on a Thursday night going through to Motherwell, so that felt a little bit fitting to do that, and we played it with a few other kind of Carluke, Lanarkshire bands, so it was nice to see it off that way, and then that was us.
That's it. Yeah. But lots of talking now. We're going to go right back to the beginning, DJ. Where originally are you from?
So I'm originally from Carluke.
Right.
I was brought up in Carluke. It was a great place to grow up. And I need to be careful here. Like in my 30s, I was sick of the place, and I had to kind of move out, become a dad, and realise I had the best childhood there. Like I was so lucky. And for some strange reason, if there's anybody watching this kind of from Carluke, but Carluke had a great music scene growing up in the 90s. Like it was mental. We had Carluke Rockfest that happened annually. We had Street Level that did gigs every 2 weeks. And we had another place called Shockwave Productions that did gigs once a month. Then every Easter there'd be music workshops. We'd have guitar teachers coming into the school. You'd be organising gigs, you know, during school, after school, and everybody was in a band. There was so many bands for Carluke.
Yeah. I think that was the same for myself, though. I'm obviously, similar to yourself, a teenager right throughout the 90s.
Yeah.
And I'm obviously through Falkirk way.
Yeah.
But, you know, there was a venue set up by a local guy, and I think it was every Friday night for maybe 3 or 4 years, but it was playing 3 rock bands every Friday, and it was like maybe a couple of quid on the door to get in, and you know, it was absolutely, it was one of those ones where for 3 or 4 years it was the place to go on a Friday night until, I don't know if everybody grew up or it kind of died a bit of a death. But for those 3 or 4 years, that's kind of when me and Chris originally played in our first band when we were teenagers. But we would have been probably 15, 16, 17, 18, like the perfect age for something like that existing. But you also had like music shops, as in like actual instrument shops, shops that sold CDs and all that sort of thing. All that sort of stuff existed. And it feels like it's all kind of gone. But am I right in saying you're a teacher now?
Yep, I'm a high school teacher now for my son. So yeah, I teach in south side of Glasgow.
I'm curious,
Beside my computer.
do any of your students play in bands?
So there is a band. It's not the same. There's kind of one band in the school, but they're kind of just from what I can tell, a covers band at the moment. They played some Oasis songs at the talent show, and they were great. And it's great to see that, but not in the same way than when we were young.
The reason that I'm asking, obviously my daughter, she's 20 now, so it's been a few years since she was at high school, but when she was in her last year of high school, I remember one day asking her, do any of your friends play guitar, drums, do they play an instrument? And she said, yeah, there's one or two, do this or that. I said, do they play in a band? And she looked at me like I'd insulted her, like, how embarrassing. Imagine, see, when I was a teenager, the coolest thing ever was to say I play in a band, and there was plenty of people that...
All I wanted to do.
The band it wasn't even really a band, it was just a bunch of guys hanging about pretending that they could play, but I was like, I hope that's what my daughter said is an odd one, because I hope there's still plenty of teenagers out there rocking and rolling. So
when the boys... it was all boys that played at the talent show. I kind of just every time I see him on the stairs now, if he's got a wee gig yet, you should maybe go and give the Key East Kilbride a wee shout or whatever. But I don't know if they're driving it or not. I think they just want it for a bit of fun. I think a lot of them maybe wait till later age now to even try and do that. But I mean, a lot of, as you know, and this is the way I'm doing it now as well, is that music's more of a solo effort for everybody. Like, they would rather just sit with GarageBand now, maybe. And that's how they're
I think it's that thing though, you think back to when we were 15 years old. I think I got my first 4-track Tascam 4-track when I was 17, and it blew my mind. I can record guitar on channel 1, I can record another guitar on channel 2, I can record bass on channel 3, I can then bounce it all to channel 1 to then free up more tracks, get the keyboard out and do the keyboard drums, and nowadays it's like it's so accessible. I mean, as you say, you don't even need a computer, an iPad. I mean, everybody's got these things nowadays. And
I mean, in schools now, you can actually go and take music technology as a course.
Yeah.
So you can go and get hired in music technology, which is amazing.
Yeah, I think I done that at college, and then I realised there's no job at the end of it.
Well, true.
But obviously, you're brought up in Carluke.
Yeah, from Carluke.
Were you exposed to music from a very young age when you were a child?
For me, it was Michael Jackson. That was it. I was absolutely obsessed with Michael Jackson.
Well, 80s kid.
Yeah, 80s kid. I remember being in Butlins, somebody playing Michael Jackson, and just being like, oh, what is this? And I was obsessed. I was lucky enough to go and see him when he came to the Glasgow Green in 1994. It
was 1991 because I've got the ticket stub behind me on the wall because I was there as well.
Oh man, it's the only time I've ever seen my mum run. Do you know the gates open? My mum.
You know what?
Run!
It wasn't a concert. It was like an experience. That's the only way I can describe it. I've never seen anything like that since.
Yeah.
And
at the end, they put the backpack on and he flew.
Yeah, but it was just. I mean, Michael Jackson, there was quite a lot of rock element to that. I don't know who the woman was, the woman guitarist.
Yeah.
With the big blonde hair.
Yeah. Brilliant.
But that was just like a whole new level.
Yep. That was it.
But,
so it was definitely Michael Jackson, but I was quite lucky. Mum and Dad always had music. I think probably my mum and dad are more into technology than music, so they wanted the CD player. They got the Modern Homes exhibition. The CD player would be sitting there. All right, we better get some CDs. So I would listen to like Patsy Cline and just whatever CDs I could get my hands on. But the change happened, I think, for a lot of people in maybe 1994. We got Sky Television, and I got access to MTV. And I can remember watching. It was MTV Europe at the time, and it was Dial MTV. And probably the two songs that changed my perception on music. One, Offspring, Self-Esteem.
Okay.
And Green Day, Basket Case.
Yeah.
And at that...
Sorry, I'm just laughing. I can see the ticket stub behind me.
Yeah, yeah.
How much do you think a Michael Jackson concert was?
Oh, back then, I don't even know. I mean, inflation-wise and all that, I would imagine, 40 or 50 quid would have been seen as expensive back then.
£19.50. Yeah.
Wow.
Glasgow Green.
I think I've still got the scarf. My mum bought me a scarf for that.
I've got it as well. Somewhere
upstairs. But so that, and then I kind of got in my rock chops, so a bit of Bon Jovi and a bit of Alanis Morissette. 1994, the world changed, then Britpop started happening.
Well, I was going to say, a lot of people I speak to, they'll get exposed to music from their parents if their parents are listening to some good tunes, but a lot of them seem to, it's when they go to high school, 11 or 12.
Totally. Tape swapping was a big deal. I loved it.
Oh, yeah. But, some people shun the 90s. But 1994, as you said, especially that particular year, see the amount of great albums that came out that year. It's like scary. I mean, there was obviously Dookie by Green Day.
Yeah.
You had The Offspring.
Yeah.
Even the heavier stuff, Machine Head, Burn My Eyes came out, Therapy, Trouble Gum. I mean, the list goes on and on and on, and it was all just great music, and it all sounded different as well.
Yeah, and I think, like, I can remember being in P7 and starting to be aware of, like, your identity and kind of like who you're going to become, and it's very easy just to kind of take a jacket off and say, like, well, I'm going to be a raver, so I'm going to do this, and I had to figure out who I was. And I definitely think back in the 90s, I mean, maybe young people do it these days with computer games or social media or YouTube, but back in the 90s, how did you kind of identify who you were? It was through music.
Yeah.
And I can remember just identifying, right, I like guitar music. I've been playing guitar since the age 8, although you could never tell that. And I genuinely believe the reason why I wanted to pick up guitar is because I watched Bill and Ted's Bogus Journey and the concert at the end, and I was like, I want to save the world with my guitar. That's it. I'm going to start playing the guitar, and that was it. So
yeah, it was pretty cool.
I've always been at guitar, and then in the 90s, I just feel guitar music absolutely took off, and I was there for the ride. It was great.
Yeah. I mean, this podcast is me living out my Wayne's World dream. But give us a laugh then. What was the first album do you remember buying with your own money?
Yeah, so when I was really, really, really young, I can remember getting The Simpsons Singing the Blues.
Right.
And I think that was probably me going to the John Menzies and Hamilton with my mum. But I think there was a few. Alanis Morissette's definitely maybe one of them, and Bryan Adams. The Bryan Adams album that was out that year. It had Summer of '69 on it. I bought that.
Well, it's a rock. It is still a rock, a classic rock.
So, but the issue for me though was because it was tape swapping.
Yeah.
So because I didn't have any money, I'd have the VHS sitting, on the TV, and you knew that Self-Esteem was number one yesterday. So you would assume that Self-Esteem was going to be number one again the day, and then as soon as you'd hit record on the VHS, and I used to record the videos off MTV.
You're trying to record songs off the radio as well.
And then my next door neighbour, he was maybe 3 years older than me, and he was into rock music. And then I'm like, have you heard this band called Offspring? And then maybe like 3 or 4 days later, he'd pass a tape through the window. Like, great. So then I had the Smash, I had Dookie, I had Foo Fighters' first album, I was really into Silverchair, and it was all these kind of teenage tapes which just kind of switch about.
I always remember being 10 years old and my friend came down with a cassette tape, a copy.
Yeah.
And he said, put this in. And I had no idea what heavy metal music was, didn't know it existed. And it was the start of the Master of Puppets album.
Brilliant.
And it's true though, because, from that point on, I'm like, I want a guitar. Yeah. You start hanging about with certain people, and it does take you down this total path that if you liked something else, you would go off in a different direction. What was your first ever professional concert that you attended? Apart from the Michael Jackson one.
So I think I would always show an interest in music, but like if you're going to have to go with your mum, so I can remember mum taking me to a Wet 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 concert just because I wanted to go to a gig. Do you know?
But what was the first one that you went with your friends?
So I can remember that. So it was Offspring, and I was 14.
Where was that?
The Barrowlands, and it was the Americana tour.
Hey, this is Matt Lynott from the White Buffalo, and you're watching Slowhands Rock Talk Show, talking all things music.
Just a very quick message to say thank you for watching. It really is appreciated. If you could hit the like button, subscribe to the channel, and remember to hit the notification bell. That way you won't miss any future episodes that come out. Now back to the video. Yeah, so, and the Barrowlands is such an amazing venue.
And I thought I was going to die. Like it was scary. 14 years old, you know, and you're kind of in the pit. And it took us maybe 2 or 3 songs, and we're getting my mates were 13 at the time. We all get split up. But then after that, and once we survived that, we were at gigs all the time. Like Machine Head played all the time.
Every December, Machine Head with 1 minute silence.
Yeah. Just I was talking about that the other day. Alineo sometimes played, and then the Fun Loving Criminals always played every December. They was always there, so we'd go and see them.
Well, I've got a ticket stub behind me. The Barrowlands Pantera, April 2000, £11. I've got Slipknot.
Yeah, I was there.
At the Barrowlands, £10.
I was there. That was scary.
Sepultura at the QMU, 1998, £11. It's like ridiculous.
Did you used to buy yours for underneath the umbrella in Glasgow, or did you go to the Virgin shop in Argyle Street? I used to go to the Virgin shop in Argyle Street and go downstairs.
I think I got my tickets from Tower Records down at Central Station.
Yeah. Well, there was a wee. I know exactly what you're talking about.
Because I went to. I went through. When I left high school, I went to college. Yeah. Stowe College.
Yeah.
So I just got on the bus at Buchanan Street. So I would just wander down along Sucky Hall Street, down Buchanan Street, right down to the bottom, and then you've obviously got Tower Records. Spend ages wandering around there, and then you'd get your tickets there, and then you'd wander back up to the bus station. It was good times.
It was good. So we did Offspring. I did Silverchair that same year, and then after that was the ball rolling, and just that was my social life from 14.
Oh, it was brilliant.
14, it was great. And I remember like our folks would drop us off, and then we'd have a wee meeting spot. You know, we didn't have mobile phones or anything at that point. You'd write, I'll meet you here after the gig. And I liked it when I'd open the doors and the steam's coming off everybody, because it was that sweaty in the venue, and it was brilliant. It was good.
I was at the Barrowlands last year. I can't remember who it was for. It was Sepultura, actually.
Yeah.
But I don't know how many bands I've seen there. It's the perfect size, it's the perfect shape, it's a great sound. It doesn't matter where you stand, you've got a view. Yeah. You know, it's just such a magical venue. Yeah. I mean, most of the bands I go and see now are probably at the O2.
Yep.
But the Barrowlands is still my favourite.
There's a lot of bands that think, like, if I really like a band and they're coming into Glasgow and they're playing the Hydro, I might just skip it. Like, I don't know if I want that for a Friday, Saturday night, but if there's a band that I'm not even sure about and they're playing the Barras, then I'm more likely to go. Do you know what I mean?
The Garage is another good one.
Yeah. That's where I've seen Silverchair when I was...
and the old ABC was good before it obviously disappeared.
I've seen some great Excerpts in there, Pride's in there, some brilliant bands in there.
I know. But you were saying that you got a guitar when you were 8.
Yeah.
So... I mean, let's just say it was Bill and Ted that made you pick that up, right? Which is pretty cool. Who would you have said was your guitar playing influences? Who was inspiring you back then?
I'm still not into shredding. I don't get it. I don't find it. But it's almost a bit like a magic trick. Like when you watch somebody shred, you go, "Oh, that's amazing," and then you learn it, and you're like, well, it's not really amazing. Like I'm just not. It's not impressed me. It doesn't kind of reach into me in a musical way. I think it's more like Guitar Olympics than it is kind of artistic. Like try to say like kind of like music connection. I just don't get that from shredding. So I'm kind of much more into like Kurt Cobain had it for me. Like what he did, and I think Kurt Cobain did a lot for people. He kind of showed them that you don't need to be, like Stevie Vai or you don't need to be this amazing person on a guitar to be a fantastic musician. And for me, that kind of blew the doors open and made music accessible. And even like now when I'm writing or playing guitar, I'm not thinking about how many notes I can fit in, or I'm not trying to do sweep picking or anything like that. I'm much more just thinking about the feel of the song and play guitar for the song and for the music. So there's no other player that did that like Kurt Cobain. Nobody.
It's funny you're saying that, because I spoke with the guys. I love the band Therapy.
Yeah.
And I was speaking with the guys, and I'd said to them, I loved Therapy, I loved Metallica, I loved Iron Maiden. I said, but just starting out playing the guitar, Metallica and Iron Maiden, they're so far out of reach because they're so talented at playing.
Totally.
I said, I don't mean this in a bad way, but Therapy, you could actually learn their songs. They were so much simpler, but you felt accomplished because you could actually pick it up and play what your heroes were playing.
Totally.
And
I'm still that way.
I sometimes just think it's like less is more sometimes. Whatever you're playing, does it make the song sound better? Because that's one thing. There's a lot of rock bands nowadays. It's almost like it's a competition of how complicated can we be.
Yep, I'm not into it at all.
But see, even if you listen to old Sepultura, for example, half the time they're just playing the E note.
Yeah.
It's just a simple riff, but it works.
Yeah, it should be much more about the feel than like trying to explain to somebody what you're doing. Like if you need to explain it, it's already too complicated. And there's a time and a place for kind of complicated music, and like I listen to some of it, but as far as my playing goes and what I've always set out to be, it's not what we've done. I think when you mentioned, we're talking about Sooth, I think we had maybe one guitar solo in all of our songs. It just wasn't anything that we wanted to do, and yeah.
But you had your own sound, but you're playing the guitar. When did you start trying vocals?
I was never meant to be the singer. I was always a bit of I did a bit of acoustic, and I did a bit of kind of singing Oasis and at parties and bumming everybody out. Everybody did in the 90s, but I think we had a brilliant singer, a guy called Graham MacDonald. He was just an amazing front.
Is this in Sooth?
No, so we were called Dominate. It was.
Oh, is this the band before?
Band before,
right?
And he was this like late 90s, like X Factor style. He just not as in the TV show, but he had the X Factor. He just soaked up the atmosphere in the room, commanded the room, and he was our front man. And I'd call him a front man more than a singer at the time.
Yeah,
and he just did wonders for us, and we did really well within the kind of teenage market. And we had like a guy who said he was going to manage us and all that. I don't know if that ever happened, but and then he dropped out, and I remember being like, oh nah, and just being totally gutted when he dropped out. And I must have been about 18 at the point when that happened. And then we started to audition singers. But in the meantime, when we were auditioning singers, I just started to kind of write lyrics, just as a backup plan.
Yeah.
And because I knew I'd done some vocals acoustically, but I was so intimidated because this was quite a heavy rock band, and I didn't feel I had that in me, to be honest. I still don't, to be honest. And eventually, I can remember we had somebody in for a singer, and then the band asked me to do what I would do straight after this guy's audition, and the guy who auditioned went, "What am I here for? You guys have already got a singer." And he's like, "I'll see you later on," and off he went.
Yeah.
And the boys went, "I just want to keep doing it." And it took me a while, and it definitely took me up until kind of 6 months on, that third EP of ours, to kind of get confident with it. And the run up to that EP, as a band, we agreed to I was going to go to singing lessons, and I did. That's how serious we took it. I started going to singing lessons, met with a lovely lady called Natalie, I think her name was, and maybe did about 4 or 5 sessions for that. And we really worked on my vocals, but we were trying to do, obviously, heavy rock, but I always struggle to kind of call our band metal, because I don't think my vocals are typical kind of metal vocals, because I'm not coming from that background. So
the vocals is always a strange one, because easily 50% of it is pure confidence, and then the other 50% is made up probably of ability and also you being able to listen as well. But you can't teach confidence. You can get someone to come and teach you breath control and try this and maybe try and find the key that's suitable for your voice, and you can figure out your parameters, what are you capable of doing, but to get confidence, you've got to just keep at it.
Yeah.
And a lot of people, you can see that it holds them back.
Mm-hmm.
You know they've got great voices.
I think that in the first 3 recordings that we did, I always think my vocals are slightly different in each one, because that's me kind of trying to
Find your own voice,
what I'm meant to be, and definitely think we found it by the third one. Absolutely, got it.
Well, obviously from the time that I seen you until the end, you sounded good to my ears at least.
Good.
But
no, thanks.
Give me a wee laugh then. We're talking about the band Sooth.
Yeah.
You're still pals with all the guys.
All of them.
They're all doing their own little thing. They've got their lives on the go.
I'm seeing Mackie and Saturday. Yeah.
Describe for me in a few words each of your old band members.
No bother at all. Can I say here? I'll start off with Dave. Super talented on the drums, and the most probably chilled out, relaxed person I've ever met. And he's so placid. I think we've had one argument ever because he's just that laid back. So let's say that's Dave. But what a drummer! Brian, what am I saying about Brian? Quirky. That's why we love him. But he brought, as I said, he brought the harmony and melody to us, and he's probably the person I still do the most music with. So that's Brian, quirky as ever. It took a while for us to kind of figure out his quirks when he joined the band, so I've got to admit, but we definitely got there and we embraced them in the end. Malky, what can I say about Malky? Malky's a busy man. He's a busy man, but I'm trying to think from back in the kind of band days, he used to get quite angry.
Is that if you tied his leads and you didn't wrap them properly?
Like that, but I'd say Malky's definitely the most metal guy in the band. Like, he definitely had he'd get his anger out in the rehearsal rooms and stuff like that. But
I think Malky's a bit of a... I think he must be a bit of a vampire or something, because he doesn't appear to have aged at all, which is alarming.
He's handsome, that's it. I should have used handsome for them all, because we are all handsome. But
handsome and stunning.
That's it. No, we've still got the lottery sweepstake. I'm meeting Malky and Brian for the rugby on Saturday, and I'm meeting Brian for Thrice on Sunday night. So
there you go.
And then I think I'm seeing Dave on the 29th for a drum session, so we'll see what happens. It's not Sooth related, but we just can't commit to anything like that. But we're just trying to keep our toes wet.
See if someone had never heard Sooth.
Yeah.
And you had to pick one song that you think best represents the band overall, what song would you play them?
So definitely something off 6 months on. I've mentioned that enough. I would probably say Eeny Meeny.
Right.
Probably say Eeny Meeny, but I do think all our stories, the chorus and that, the kind of strings coming in, the breakdown, that's a little bit more accessible.
Mm-hmm.
There's a bit of a strange disco beat in the verses, so
it works though.
It was a bit different, but I'll probably go for Eeny Meeny.
Yeah,
we always kind of wanted to do rock, but not take the easy road. Do you know?
Yeah.
And although you said that we didn't overplay, and I absolutely agree with that, but what we would maybe try and do slightly differently would be kind of the timings, or some of the riffs wouldn't be your kind of bog standard riffs, which made us a little bit left field to other bands. I always thought what really struggled with us is when we booked gigs in Glasgow, we would be put on with bands that would just be like,
aye.
And we're not that band. And yeah, we've absolutely got distorted guitars, we've absolutely got double kick pedals, but I can remember like at one point we would all turn up and we were trying to kind of portray this, we've got pianos in the EP, we're strings in our EP, we're a bit more grown up here, we're trying to be a little bit more universal, and I definitely think we kind of struggle to find that audience, because every gig I think
what you're saying, like bands, you put you next to a band that's like a Pantera, Sepultura, it doesn't fit, but then you put you next to a band that's like a Travis or a Oasis, you also don't fit because you're too heavy. You're kind of that in-between stage.
Yeah. Yeah, and I found that quite hard to. Can you just? I think that was one. I think that was probably the demise of Sooth. It was us couldn't quite figure out how to sell this product that we were so proud of. Like, we are still so proud of it, but that's half the battle in music.
I remember you and me talking though once, probably after quite a few drinks, and but I can remember you saying to me that you properly as a band, as if the four band members, you spent easily like a good 10 years properly trying to make it, and it just didn't happen. And it's funny because I get obviously established artists on the podcast as well, and I've started asking them, what is the secret? What makes a band succeed when there's thousands and thousands that don't? You know, is it ability? Is it songwriting? Is it who you know? Is it pure luck? Is it being in the right place at the right time? And most of them have came back saying, it's not ability. You know, there's a time and place for guitar shredding, but I mean, Johnny Cash had a career with 5 or 6 chords. Yep. It definitely got to be songwriting, and there's got to be a massive amount of luck.
Yeah. I also think about the package. So, like, what's the overarching story? What's your selling point? Like, what makes you unique? All that kind of stuff. And I think that's what we hadn't figured out. We were absolutely frazzled after making this EP. We put everything into it. We were all skint. We were all in our overdrafts. We put more money into this EP than we ever had to do. And we kind of thought that once we've got this, that's enough. And actually, that's the start. You know, that's the start. Once you've got the product, it's like, right, well, how do I find the audience now? How do I get this audience to love this? So then they're desperate for the next one. And that's what we, I think, missed. And I do think what's really hard, and obviously DIY scene's changed a lot, and everybody talks about the DIY stuff and and how punk rock DIY is. And actually, I didn't see much punk rock about having to spend money to make your own music videos. I'd much rather spend somebody else's money to make a music video, do you know?
Yeah.
And in the 90s, that really dried up. I can remember hearing in the night. Well, that's a lie. Total lie. In the 90s, it was still going. In the 2000s, it definitely dried up. But in the 90s, I can remember hearing bands on development deals. Where nowadays, you've got bands like, brilliant bands like Father Son, like, the Excerpts, like La Fontaine's, all local boys from Scotland, that are 4 albums deep, do you know? And their 4 albums are all absolutely brilliant.
Yep.
But the zeitgeist has also changed. So I also think, I'm a big Biffy Clyro fan, and when Puzzle came out, that was the right time, the right place, the country was ready for it, the country absorbed it, boom, Biffy Clyro came who they are. But I almost feel that since then, no rock act's been allowed through the gates. Except they've just been like, nah, that's enough. We've got Biffy.
It's a real strange one as well, though, because the 80s and the 90s, the record company, there was so much deals on the go that a record company would sign a band, they would give them an advance. There was I've been told by people in the business that people would make fake bands almost simply to get the advance, and then they'd split the band up, they'd start another one, and they're getting this money and they're partying and all that. But I was talking to a band in London not too long ago, and they'd said that they'd wrote a single that had they'd wrote several singles, but there's a particular one they released a few months ago, and it done really, really well. Was getting lots of play. And they'd said to me that we've just achieved our first 1 million streams on Spotify. And I'm thinking for an independent band, I said, that's an amazing achievement. And then he said to me, how much do you think I made from that? And he made 1 million streams, and he made the equivalent of what I make going and playing 2 pub gigs.
And definitely that was another thing. So for us, when we were in Sooth, we were all either students or were part-time jobs or we were renting. And I think I'd got my first full-time job, and I was in line to get a mortgage like 6 months later. And I was like, right, well, if somebody came and gave me a white van and says, right, you're going around the country for 3 months, I couldn't do that. And I wouldn't do that because...
Aye.
But I don't know if the band were all in that alignment. Like, I think there was maybe 1 or 2 that maybe still would have done that, and I had to be fair and say I'm no longer prepared to do that now. But when you were a student or you're working, part-time jobs or you're renting, you've got that freedom and flexibility to drop it all, jump the van and go. And they got to a stage where we weren't willing to jump in the white van anymore. And also,
it's funny because it's the exact same story. Do you remember there was a TV show called Rockstar Supernova?
I thought you were going to say that Channel 4 show. It was based in Glasgow, How to Become a Rock Star or something.
No, there was a show. It wasn't MTV. It was something like that. And the first year, In Excess were looking for a new singer.
Mm-hmm. Okay, I remember a wee bit of that.
Right, but the following year they done the exact same format, Rockstar Supernova, and it was Jason Newsted from Metallica, Gilby Clarke from Guns N' Roses, and Tommy Lee from Motley Crue were looking for a singer.
Yeah.
So you got the final 12 contestants, and each week one gets voted off till you get the person. And the guy that came runner up, I kind of became a sort of pally with him, and he had a band back in Australia, but he used that as a launch pad to move the band to Los Angeles, and they toured America, supported Slash, done all this great stuff, couple of albums, but they're in their 20s. And then it got to a point where they were like, we couldn't get to, we don't know why, but we couldn't get to the next level. And it was like, is this going to happen? And then, as you say, it gets to a point where it's like, we're skint.
Can I buy it?
And then there's other people, you're getting a wee bit older, somebody gets a girlfriend or they get married and there's kids and there's a mortgage and life starts to kind of become a little bit more serious, and it's, I can't live in a van for the rest of my life.
Yeah, that's it. I mean, there was also at the same time two of my favourite bands split up that year. I think it was Aerogram and Ruben split up. And I was like, wait there now here. If Ruben and Aerogram aren't making this work, and I think they're the best bands in the world, like they've got a head start on me. And maybe that's a lack of confidence on my part, but
I thought you were going to say loose lips sink ships.
I just and Ruben Ruben have wrote songs about this, about how their friends all go to university and they did the music thing and how hard the music, and it's not great to hear it's a musician sing a song about how hard it is to be a musician, but it's eye opening. And Jamie Lemon for Ruben wrote a few of those songs, and I think they split up in 2007 as well, and everything just kind of got a bit like, I don't know how, I don't think this will work as a career model anymore. It was always
it's the same for a lot of people.
That's fair.
Yeah, but obviously you got in touch with, well, we keep in touch anyway, but you'd said to us about releasing 6 months on EP. Has it been remixed, or are you simply just getting it digitised?
We just, so at the time 6 months on came out in 2007. I believe 200 copies of the CD were made and it was sold physically.
Right.
Put up on MySpace and it was sent off to a few labels and magazines and whatever. And that was it. And then really 19 years later, the files exist on our hard drives, and we still kind of feel that, well, that's a bit of a waste. And we're talking to people about the band, and I think I can remember you guys, and I was like, well, like, we've got all this technology now that it seems like such a waste not to kind of have these hosting online.
Yeah,
so we just had a chat with the boys. Like, guys, you just mind if I kind of try and put these on streaming services? And from our point of view, it's not a matter of, this isn't us relaunching the dream or trying to conquer the world here, but I guess it's twofold. We kind of want, the people who enjoyed the music back then to find a nice, easy way to enjoy it. And you know what? The second part, like, if new people discover it, then great. That's magic. And it's something that we're very proud of. And for us, I guess it allows us to kind of celebrate what the band was and just to kind of honour what we did, because it's such a huge part of us. So we're still very proud of the music. We're very proud of the work that we put in there. And for that work just to be sitting secretly on someone's hard drive just seemed a little bit of a waste.
Yep.
So as you said, in the 27th of March, Friday 27th of March, it's getting launched on all streaming services, and done some lyric videos with. I've got all my old kind of video recorder tapes and got them sent off, got them digitised, found all the old video files and kind of try to release some old footage from back in the day and just to kind of honour that time and just, it's just a shame that there's no trace of it and we don't want that to be the case.
See, when you think back, do you miss it? That time sometimes?
I miss being creative. I miss seeing my friends every week, twice.
There is something nice about that time when you're like, well, it maybe wasn't so much for myself. It wasn't so much for myself, but for you guys at that time, you probably didn't have much responsibility.
No,
you were a lot of time on your hands. Yeah. It's that thing where and you're in the unique way that you still keep in touch. Yeah. You haven't fallen out. No. But I think I already know the answer to this next question. Because I was going to say, do you ever see a wee one-off gig for fun? But it's a lot of time and effort for one-off.
If we can make the world align, we've met up in practice rooms before, just for fun.
Yeah,
just
try and remember.
It's on, for us, it's just like kind of mates meeting up for five-a-side. We might do it again. That might be fine, but at the moment, that's unrealistic with our lifestyles at the moment to kind of get to the level that we would want to get to. But for me as well, that one of my kind of pet hates about kind of the unsigned scene is a lot of kind of musicians think that they're in a band because they enjoy it. And for me, I'm kind of like, yeah, you're allowed to enjoy it, but that's not the reason you're in a band. You're in a band because the audience needs to enjoy it. Do you know what I mean?
Yeah.
There's no point in inviting an audience to your gig so that you can justify you having a gig. Do you know? It's the other way about. You should be putting on gigs to entertain people. Do you know? And if there's no demand for it, then I'm not going to force anybody to come along. That's one thing I don't miss, is trying to sell tickets.
I'm probably so far out of the music scene nowadays. I don't even know what it's like. I play all the time, but I play the pub gigs, which is a great money maker.
Brilliant.
But that's completely different from writing your own music and trying to get it out there. Don't get me wrong, I still do a lot of writing and recording.
Yeah.
But I'm so far removed from the music scene now. I don't know what it's like as a band to try and get gigs. I don't even know where you would begin.
Yeah, so maybe about 10 years ago, I did the tribute thing. So I was in a Nirvana tribute band called Your Nana.
Yeah.
And definitely learned a lot there about selling tickets and putting on gigs and event management and that kind of stuff that I didn't know when I was in an original band. So we had rules like, you're only allowed to play Glasgow once every 6 months.
Right.
That's it. No more than that. You're not allowed to play the same city twice in 6 months because otherwise you're just going to dilute your crowd straight away. We decided, we all had jobs. We're only doing gigs Friday night, Saturday night. That's it.
Yeah.
And if they want us to do a Tuesday, we're just not doing it, and we'll just turn them all down. And then obviously we're not selling a unique idea. We're not selling these songs that no one's heard. We were selling somebody else's songs. We were turning up and playing Nirvana songs all night. And we were able to sell tickets to strangers easily. And we did much better with that. And I think that's always the hard thing, that I would never want to be in an original band and just play gigs to like 5 of my mates. I can do that in my house. Come in and we'll play guitar for the night. I don't really want waste of some guy's time. But if there was ever a demand and people I thought would show up for a live gig of original music again, then it's not off the cards. But for me, it starts with original music. For me, it starts about finding your audience online now, and getting people to buy into what music you make, and then if there's a demand for it, it'd be worth looking at.
Yeah, you've done a lot of writing and recording,
loads,
over the years, but you've also done a lot of live performance. If you had to pick just one of those to do for the rest of your days, writing and recording or performing live, which one would you pick?
I think definitely be performing live. For me, for writing and recording's great, but there's that perfective manner of kind of writing and recording where you've also got the technical, you're learning something all the time. And I like learning, that's great, but live you can just go up and do it. Do you know,
Yeah.
you've not got layers and layers and layers. You've not got the mix. You've not got your compressors. You've not got your side buses. All that kind of stuff.
That's Malky's thing.
You can just go up. You can be live. You can do it, and you can probably enjoy it and relax a bit more into it. My kind of circumstances with the young family and full-time job, I am able to come up into this wee room here.
Yep.
And I'm fortunate enough to be able to enjoy music in this space. But for live music just now, it's not on the cards, because rehearsing, I'd wake up all the kids, and it's just hard to find the time.
Music's probably not your number one priority.
No.
Compared to 20 years ago.
Yes, this is true.
Yeah, but obviously we've spoke a lot about Sooth. What else have you got going on? Have you just been writing, recording a lot of your own stuff?
Yeah, so I've kind of used my music as a tool to almost learn how to record, and I've kind of got to a stage now where I actually think some of my recordings are sounding good, and I'm now, as I said earlier, that point of being perfective. I kind of need to let that go. I think when you go into a studio with someone else, there's someone else to say, that's you've got it, David, that's enough, right, let's move on. But you'll probably know when you're recording yourself, you just end up in this hamster wheel. I could probably do that again. I can do that again. And actually, I kind of need to put a line in the sand and say, nah, absolutely not. This is getting released. So I've definitely got one song that we are close to releasing. We're going to do the drums. We've done it in reverse order. I kind of programmed the drums.
Yeah.
Just myself. Then we're going to do. We're going to get a drummer in to play over that and replace those parts.
Yep.
I think everything else is done. I've decided I'm not mixing it, so I've been in touch with. Pardon me. Touch with a guy, sorry, I can't remember his name now. Oh, Mark Morrow. Morrow from Edinburgh. He's a fantastic producer and mixer. He's done some stuff that I thought's amazing. So I'm kind of emailing him back and forth. He says he's ready to mix it, so we're kind of going to do that, where I'm just going to kind of bounce all the tracks down, send it to him, hoping to release something maybe September, October time. But I kind of just need to wait and see what time allows, to be honest.
Yeah, it sounds like you've got a very similar setup to myself when it comes to original music.
Yeah.
But we've obviously been talking about the old days a lot. What's going on? So, see, before we finish up, DJ, I'm going to ask you some fun questions.
All right, okay.
I'll ask the questions. You tell me what pops into your head, okay?
All right, I'm worried. Okay.
So, imagine you could go back in time, anywhere in the world.
Yeah.
What's the one concert that you wish you could have attended?
Oh, man. I think it would need to be Nirvana at the QMU.
Okay, that's fine.
I mean, people that were at that gig talk about... Oh, no, was that the one that... No, that's the one that happened, and then the one at the Barrowlands got cancelled.
Yeah.
Yeah,
that sounds cool.
Yeah, do that.
Does the perfect album, start to finish, exist? And if so, what is the album?
Aerogram, My Heart Has a Wish That You Will Not Go.
Okay.
Yeah.
It's a bit of a dying art, which really annoys me, because I feel like it's still really important. But do you have a favourite album cover?
Yeah, so I'm just looking up here. I've actually got all my favourite albums on the wall. So I'm just looking up here for inspiration, if you're wondering what I'm doing.
Yeah.
I'm not pondering as I look out the window. The two that I've got on the board, on the wall just now, I thought, obviously, Biffy Clyro's Vertigo Bliss album was brilliant, and the whole theme that they had with all the women on the singles was great. I'd probably say that, or I don't know if I like that one. No, I don't know. I'm not massively into cover art, but it's got to be Biffy Clyro, Vertigo Bliss.
That's fine.
Yeah.
Thinking of the band Sooth,
Yeah.
Malky, Dave and Brian,
Legends.
right? You've got a dead body in the back of your car.
Yeah.
It's 4 o'clock in the morning and you need help disposing of that body, no questions asked. Which member of Sooth are you phoning for help and why?
Malky. Easy. Brian
Why
and Dave could not cope. Nah, Malky, but let's go. He's a doer. Like, you would get that done.
He'd just pop his hat on and he'd be ready.
Easy peasy. Brian and Dave couldn't cope with a dead body. No way.
Right, so Malky's maybe got a wee bit of Dexter in him.
That's it. That's it. You can handle that.
That's fine. As you know, thousands and thousands of great songs written and recorded across the years by different bands, different artists. What's the one song you wish you could have sat in the recording studio to witness the band record the song?
Probably my favourite bands. I've already mentioned them before, but like Biffy Clyro do those like big, massive songs, you know, like especially the stuff that they've done. Many of Horror was, of course, their big special song that really changed their career, and to kind of watch somebody kind of realise how big they were going to become in that song. I can imagine everybody in the studio at that day would have been like, oh man, this song's going to be an anthem. Like it's not even my favourite Biffy song. I know how big a song that is.
Yeah.
You know, it's in Europe, it's massive. And I reckon they all knew that at the time, and obviously they've got the strings and all that on it, and the production that Gigi Garth done on those records, those 3 records that he did, was just tremendous. So I'd probably said that. Yeah, I mean
that's right. I mean, obviously the answer could probably change daily because there's so many great songs.
I'm a bit embarrassed I didn't go all the way back to the Beatles or something a bit more classic.
And obviously a last question, similar, the answers could change daily, but for today, who is your Mount Rushmore when it comes to bands? Who's the 4 bands, whether it be performance, songwriting, the ones that inspired you? Who's the 4 bands for yourself?
Ruben. Up there, we'll miss them. Again, this my favourite albums again on the wall. I've got Biffy Clyro definitely up there. I'm going to say Rage Against the Machine.
Okay.
And I feel like I'm slightly cheating here, but Craig B was the main guy in Aerogram, and he went off to do the Unwinding Hours, and he also went off to do A Mote of Dust. And those 3 projects from Craig B blew my mind, so I'm going to put Craig B up there, even though he's in 3 bands.
That's fine. Yeah. Well, DJ, thank you so much for coming on to the podcast, speaking to myself all about music. It's been good catching up with you. Obviously, it scares me that as of next year, it'll be 20 years since we first met. Yeah. Time just seems to absolutely fly by. But I do look forward to the Sooth EP coming back out, getting digitised, coming out online. I'll encourage everyone to give it a stream, give it a download, whatever they prefer to do. And I also look forward to your own music as well coming out. We message each other back and forth with ideas and little sound bites and stuff. What do you think of this? And it's always interesting. But thank you for coming on. It's been good chatting to you.
As always, man. Great. Thanks for having us. See you soon.
Cheers, pal.
See you, man. Bye-bye.
Thank you for watching. Remember to subscribe to the channel and leave a comment below. Thank you.